against hers. The fingers tightening around his. Yes, she said, her voice trembling. I feel it. Dax smiled, his heart swelling. Then that's enough. For a moment they simply stood there, their hands entwined, the universe stretching endlessly around them. The barriers between their worlds, their cultures, their species seemed to fade, leaving only the undeniable connection between them. Dax could see the vulnerability in Bolan's eyes, the quiet courage it had taken for her to come here, to open herself to something so unfamiliar. And in that moment he knew he would do anything to protect what they had found. I don't know where this is going, he said, his voice steady. But I know I don't want it to stop. Bolan's lips curved into the faintest smile, her tendrils shifting slightly as she stepped closer. Nor do I, she said, her voice firm despite the emotion behind it. But this path will not be easy. There are obstacles. Let them come, Dax said without hesitation. They forever, I'm not patience, drug. It is not my intention, she replied, stepping closer. You are simply, easily distracted. Dax let out a short laugh, shaking his head. Can't argue with that. She joined him at the railing, her gaze shifting to the stars outside. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their unspoken thoughts filling the space between them. Dax wanted to say something to break the tension, but the words wouldn't come. It was Bolan who finally spoke, her voice quieter than usual. We will arrive in human space tomorrow, she said. Our delegation will transfer to the Zenari cruiser shortly thereafter. I know, Dax said, his chest tightening. It's all anyone's been talking about. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. And yet, you have avoided discussing it. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. What do you want me to say, Bolan? That I hate the idea of you leaving. Because I do. I hate it more than I can put into words. That is purposeful.
In staggering beauty, only 1 billion beings called Eloria home, a fraction of the teeming populations found on many other planets in the galaxy. Here, humans and a myriad of alien species coexisted, each with their own stories of escape, loss, and resilience. Kale adjusted the strap of his weathered backpack and felt the satisfying crunch of gravel beneath his boots as he continued along the lakeside trail. He was a rugged figure, with eyes as sharp and piercing as the hawks that nested in the high cliffs of Eloria's mountains. The life of a soldier was behind him now, traded for the peace of this forgotten world, far from the clamor of galactic conflicts that had once consumed his life. The lake mirrored the sky with a surreal clarity, and Kale's reflection stared back at him, solemn and contemplative. But suddenly, a scream shattered the tranquility, slicing through the air with such force that Kale's heart leapt in his chest. His eyes darted toward the sound, muscles coiling with reflexive urgency. Across the lake, near a grove of silver-leaf trees, he saw a figure flailing in the water. The sunlight caught on a cascade of dark hair and skin that shimmered an otherworldly blue. Kale dropped his pack, bolted forward, and dove into the lake. The water, startlingly cold, closed over his head, muting the world into an echoing silence. He powered forward with strong, practiced strokes, reaching the woman in moments. Her eyes were wide, fear and confusion painting her features as water streamed from her mouth. Kale slipped his arm around her waist, feeling the warmth of her against the icy liquid as he propelled them toward the shore. With a gasp, they collapsed on the soft, damp bank. Kale pushed the soaked hair from his eyes, breathing heavily as he turned to look at her. She was gasping for air, blue skin glistening with droplets that caught the sunlight like diamonds. Her eyes, a striking blend of gold and green, met his with a mixture of shock and gratitude. Who are you? Kale demanded, voice rough, adrenaline still coursing through him. He reached into his vest and pulled out his old pistol blaster, its familiar weight grounding him in this moment of uncertainty. The blaster pointed at her, unwavering. The woman pushed herself up on shaky elbows, her expression shifting from fear to an almost regal composure. My name is Valana, she said, her voice lilting with an accent that hinted at far-off stars. And you have just saved me. Why were you out here? Kale's eyes narrowed, the soldier in him analyzing every detail. Her form-fitting garment, dark with moisture, revealed toned limbs marked with intricate tattoos that swirled like constellations. They weren't just decorative, they were the insignias of a people who belonged to the Avarian elite, a force known throughout the galaxy for their ruthless ambition. I came here for peace, Valana whispered, her gaze falling to the ground as if ashamed. To forget a life that was never mine to choose. Kale's brow furrowed. And yet you almost drowned in a lake where your kind should be able to breathe underwater for hours. Valana's eyes shimmered, tears mingling with lake water. There are some pains too deep to overcome, she said softly, a tremor in her voice. When I swam out today, I wasn't just looking for peace, I was looking for an end. Kale felt the hardness in his expression waver. The blaster lowered, just a fraction, but he kept his guard up. Why should I believe you? You shouldn't, Valana replied, lifting her chin as if daring him to pull the trigger. But you saved me anyway. And now, my life is yours. By the code of my people, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. My kitty is yours, you may breed me whenever you want with your big shaft human. Kale stood close enough to see the subtle shift in her eyes, the mixture of uncertainty and longing that mirrored his own. His hand moved almost of its own accord, reaching out to brush a strand of damp hair from her face. The touch was light, tentative, but it sent a shiver racing down Valana's spine. She looked up at him, eyes wide and luminous in the fading light, searching for something, permission, assurance, a reason to let go of the walls she had spent years building. Valana took a step forward, closing the space.
Cool. Let's do it around here. Right here on the wall. Cool. Well, I will see you a month, a week, who knows, but I will see you then. Bye for now.